Once you become a mother, you get blindsided by so many things. And what to expect when you're expecting does not prepare you for the fact that you are not going to recognize yourself for a while. The random waves of grief over the version of you who is gone now, how much your brain goes into overdrive, how all your relationships are going to change, the way your confidence can take a nosedive. But I'm not here to scare you. When I became a mom, the thing I was most terrified of was that I would never be the same person again. And quite honestly, I'm not, but I wouldn't change it. I wouldn't have it any other way. Motherhood has a way of stripping you down and forcing you to rebuild yourself into somebody who is stronger and wiser and more grounded than you ever thought you could possibly be. And nobody tells you about that in the beginning. So in this episode, I'm going to talk about the things that I wish I knew before becoming a mom, the surprising ways that motherhood forces you to grow, and how to confidently step into this new version of yourself. Welcome to Mom's Emotional Toolbox. I'm Tanisha, the VVS Life Coach. Let's get into it. Let me ask you this. Has motherhood ever made you feel like you are just drowning in a sea of thoughts? Like your brain just never shuts off because there's always something to worry about. One thing that I wish I knew before I even considered getting pregnant was how much my anxiety was going to be heightened. I worried about my son at every stage. He's 18 now, but let me just tell you, it doesn't get any easier. You just worry about different stuff as they get older. When he was a baby, it was all about, what if he gets sick? What if I drop him? What if? But now that he's 18 and transitioning into his adult life, I worry about how the world is going to treat him, if I've properly prepared him, if he's going to be a happy adult. Right now is a little tumultuous for him, right? Because this is a scary time for him, but because of that bravado and stubborn boyness, he doesn't necessarily want to say that he's afraid of things, but I see it because I know my kid, and I know when he is holding himself back because he's scared to make the next move. And so the worries just become different. I felt like when he was smaller, and even to a degree now, that I can't protect him enough. And because of his stature and him being on the shorter end of the spectrum, I worry about how that becomes a factor. I worry about his mental health. I worry about his future. But that very same anxiety has sharpened my instincts, and I've learned how to prepare for life in ways that I never thought about before. And I built this emotional stamina, and I know that I have the capacity to deal with big emotions, both his and mine, for as long as necessary to make it through things. I am a great man in a storm because I put my faith in God, knowing that trouble don't last always. And when this season is over, I have joy waiting for me on the other side. And so I do what must be done. And through that, I learned how to trust myself and my decision making. And I've reinforced the message that I do, in fact, know what I'm doing. And there is nothing that I can say that I regret more than not transitioning into damage-free discipline sooner. But I listen to my mom, and she always says, you do the best you can with what you have. And when you know better, you do better. And so as I know better, I start to do better. And so I do know what I'm doing. And I am doing okay, because when I see the things that are not helpful to him, I pivot and I adjust. And that is a sign that I'm doing exactly what should be done. And knowing that everybody's home doesn't look the same. Every mom is not going to handle things the same way, but there's more than one way to skin a cat. And then there have been these times when I have looked at my son and I thought, why are you like this? And the slap in the face was that I saw me, right? In a lot of ways, he was just a smaller version of me. And I had to think about, if I don't like what I'm seeing, I have to change the program that I am installing. So the second thing that I wish I knew before I became a mom was how motherhood will force you to see yourself. Your kids are like little mirrors. They are going to reflect your attitudes, your behaviors, your beliefs. And when you don't like what you see, you got to take a step back and look at where that comes from. When I was frustrated by my son talking too much, I had to recognize just how much I talk and how much time I would spend talking to him and asking him questions. And so it's natural that he wanted to talk to me and ask me a million questions. And I had to not get so impatient with him, even though I wanted quiet. Because in that moment, he wanted connection and I had to suck it up. But I also noticed that when he got angry, he would yell, he would hit, he would pout and go off in a room by himself. And I had to recognize that he had seen me handle my anger the exact same way. And while I don't handle anger that way now, it was very much so who I was then. I also had to pay attention to the fact that the things that triggered me had more to do with my own childhood or my beliefs about parenting than they had to do with what he actually was doing. Here's an example. If he started answering me back when I told him to go do something, like, but why? I don't want to do that. Or why? Can't I just have a little bit more time? That would really tick me off. But it wasn't because he just had a question or was trying to negotiate. It was because I was never allowed to do that. And so it's like, who do you think you are that you can talk to me that way? Instead of me just recognizing at this stage in a child's life, they're going to push back because they want to see how far they can push. And he learned how to work the system. And he had already experienced that he could negotiate with me because I was inconsistent with what I was enforcing. So it had everything to do with me and my own beliefs and what I was not allowed to do as a kid, way more than it had to do with him actually talking back. I had to start keeping things in perspective. But on the flip side of that, I developed a level of empathy that I never would have imagined for myself when I think about who I was pre-child. And it continues to expand. I have become this very intentionally reflective person so that I can course correct as needed before something becomes a bigger problem. I don't need somebody to always point out to me the way my tone is coming across or the way my body language or facial expressions are coming across. And I know that just because somebody hasn't said anything doesn't mean that they aren't bothered by something. And so I tune in and pay attention to the effect that I'm having on other people, and I make the necessary corrections. I think in the moment and I think after, how could I have handled a situation differently or better? Motherhood has turned me into that person. This other one is huge for me because my family will tell you that I was definitely the hothead kid, quick to argue and fight physically and otherwise. And through becoming a mom, I have learned how to control my reactions to anger. Anger is natural. Everybody's going to get angry about stuff. It's a normal emotion, and it's not one that I have to try to avoid. I had to learn what to do with it when it came. And so now when I feel the signs, that's when I can go back into that reflective mode and think, what is really my issue here? And what is it that I need to do in order to deal with that problem effectively? I hope I don't cry during this part, but I already feel it welling. The other thing that it forced me to do is reflect on my childhood and those things that I wasn't healed from. And I praise God that I have the opportunity to still have my parents to have conversations about that stuff. And so through these healing conversations, I've deepened my relationships with them and been able to let go of past pains, because motherhood makes me see certain things differently and see decisions that they made differently. I didn't understand them when it was happening to me when I was a kid. But now that I've had to tell my son, I love you, and you got to go somewhere else right now because you're not meeting the requirements that I told you need to be met for you to be here, that was hard. And I remember when I was 17 and my dad saying, you think you grown? You got to go be grown somewhere else. And I didn't understand it and I was angry, and now I'm going through something similar. But I know that it's necessary to push my son to stand on his own 2 feet and now start applying the lessons instead of me being the crutch he's allowed to lean on and get complacent. And if I hadn't had the healing conversations with my parents, I don't know that I ever would have really made peace with my own transition out of the house. So that was big for me. I also get to think about the beliefs they instilled in me that I absolutely want to keep because they're good ones, and which ones don't reflect the kind of mom I want to be. And so my son has more of a voice than I ever had because that was a belief I decided to replace. And I can see now in a way that I couldn't before what work I need to do to make the kind of mom that I envision possible. So now I want to share the third thing that I wish I had learned before I became a mom. I don't know if you're anything like me, but I was a hoverer and a micromanager for most of my son's life. And then I realized how much that was holding him back. And I had to really ask myself, am I helping him or am I just scared to let go? So the last thing that I wish I knew before becoming a mom was just how much I would struggle with letting go of control. When he was little, it was easy in that I had the ability to do everything for him. And he did everything on my timeline with my permission. But as he got older, I realized I don't have as much to control. I can't control certain things. I can control consequences for what he does, but I can't control what he does. Even if I don't like it, I got to be prepared to stand on my authority on my end of things because I can't make him do anything. I had to stop putting into him this idea that he can't do anything without me or my approval, because Lord knows I don't want to see him as a grown man out here looking for other people's approval to live his life and make decisions and do what needs to be done. I had to wean myself off of being so present and ready to jump in to save him from the consequences of his actions. And I had to fight these feelings of not being needed. But what ended up being the benefits of that is realizing that I am needed. It's just in a different way. And that's something that forces me to continue to evolve. I'm always growing. But when I think about my personal core values, at the top of the list is growth. If I'm not growing, why am I here? I realized that by weaning myself off of this identity that revolved around being a mom and being his mom, I am discovering the next version of me. And I love her. I love the woman that I am becoming. I have so much more peace and freedom from anxiety now because I'm not trying to white knuckle my way through parenting and just keep a tight grip. His life is his to live. Mine is mine. I made my choices at his age that have led me down the path that I'm on, and he has to make his own choices. And while this is a tricky time for us both, and it's definitely an emotional time for me, I'm enjoying the transition to the mom of an adult child and taking it as it comes. But I just wanted to share some of the things that I wish I knew. Embrace who you are becoming at every stage of motherhood. Enjoy who your children are becoming right alongside you and allow yourself to learn from them because they will teach you more about you than you were ever going to discover on your own. Look for those opportunities. Don't look at the things that your kids are doing that are a reflection of you as a bad thing. If you see something you don't like, you can course correct. You can model something different. You can be a different type of leader because that's what good parenting is. It's leadership. So you don't need to be afraid to have kids. If you're listening to this and you're somebody who was not even sure you want to have kids because you don't want to mess them up or, the world's so crazy. But you get to lead and show them how to manage the stress of the world. You get to fill their emotional toolboxes to be good, moral, solid, kind, compassionate human beings. And so you don't have to be afraid of that. It means you have work to do. And that's okay, because we all have work to do in one or many regards. So don't let the fear of losing your identity, keep you from deliberately stepping into your true identity. Be the mom, be the woman, be the person that you have decided you want to be. And it's really as simple as that. You set out, this is who I want to be. This is what I need to know to become this person, to become this parent. And do that. Here's the truth that I'm going to leave you with. Motherhood is going to strip away every illusion that you ever had about yourself. It's going to force you to see who you really are. But on the other side of it, you are going to step into the strongest, most capable version of yourself that you have ever met. And I think that's a great thing. So that's a wrap for this week. I would love to hear from you. And I want you to tell me in the comments, how has motherhood changed you for the better? And what advice would you give newer moms? Thank you so much for being here, and I'll see you next week.